Bang! As soon as Yang Yi spoke, a terrifying aura surged out explosively from within him, and then Nye Tian and the others who were charging at him were instantly blasted around 300 m back. Nye Tian and the others were astounded. At this moment, Yang Ye's face had warped to the extreme. Obviously, he was enduring excruciating pain. His body was emanating faint flames, and his aura was rising explosively. His aura was growing stronger and stronger. He's using a secret technique to improve his cultivation. Stop him! Nyehun was shocked. Yang Yi was just a quasi-emperor, yet Yang Ye's strength was already so terrifying. If Yang Yi attained the emperor realm, he didn't dare imagine what would happen. Nyehun didn't hesitate to stretch his right hand forward and claw at Yang Yi. In an instant, a huge palm instantly emerged from the space before Yang Yi and clawed forcefully at Yang Yi and Zir. It was about to tear them to bits. Meanwhile, Nye Tian and the others didn't just stand by idly, and they attacked in unison as well. Just thinking about Yang Yi attaining the Emperor realm caused a chill to run down their spines. Meanwhile, Yang Yi suddenly opened his eyes. Bang! A terrifying aura erupted from Yang Yi once more. This aura was countless times stronger than before, and it caused Nyehun's attack to be instantly obliterated. The Emperor realm. Nyehun's pupils constricted at the sight of this. Retreat! Retreat right now! At this moment, he couldn't be bothered about the Nye clan's honor. All he knew was that if they didn't retreat right now, then they wouldn't be able to do so forever. As soon as he spoke, Nyehun turned around and vanished into the horizon. Nye Tian and the others reacted comparatively slowly, and they only reacted once they saw Nyehun retreat. At this moment, they'd realized how serious the situation was. The Emperor realm. Yang Yi had attained the Emperor realm, and a chill ran down their spines when they thought up to this point. All of them fled in succession. Suddenly, Yang Yi moved. He sheathed his sword into the ancient sheath before swiftly drawing it once more. OM! A sword howl resounded. This sword howl was unlike the previous sword howls. As soon as it resounded, the space in front of Yang Yi instantly cracked apart. At the same time, a beam of sword energy shot out from Yang Ye's ancient sheath. 700 overlapped heaven wrens. A voider of the Nye clan wasn't even able to react before the sword energy pierced through him. His figure stiffened on the spot, and then his figure exploded in midair and was obliterated. As for the sword energy, it hadn't vanished, and it continued forward. Space continued to collapse, inch by inch as it shot forward. Nye Tian and the others were horrified by the sight of this, and they hurriedly dodged to the side. In the end, they watched as it vanished into the sky. Behind the sword energy was an extremely long spatial rift that was around 300 m wide, and it stretched all the way into the sky. Nye Tian and the others turned pale when they noticed it. Meanwhile, another sword howl resounded from afar. Their figures instantly trembled upon hearing it, because they knew that someone else was about to die. It wasn't something they could dodge, let alone resist. Actually, if they hadn't fled and joined forces, then it wouldn't be too difficult for them to stop Yang Ye's attacks. However, their minds had fallen into chaos when they saw Yang Yi attain the Emperor realm. At such a time, they had no intention to resist Yang Yi, and they only wanted to flee for their lives. As the sword howl resounded, Nye Tian's entire body shook, but he heaved a sigh of relief, because he was still alive. He turned to look, and he saw the senior Yuan's figure had stiffened not too far away from him. Nye Tian paid no attention to senior Yuan, and he immediately shouted at the last survivor, Nye Qing, let's go! As soon as he finished speaking, both of them raised their speeds to its limits and instantly appeared 5,000 kilometers away. Even though they'd fled so swiftly, their hearts were still filled with terror. They were absolutely afraid that another sword howl would resound from behind them. It didn't take long for them to heave sighs of relief because no sword howl had resounded. There would be none, of course, because Yang Yi was on the verge of collapse. Yang Ye's entire body was trembling as if he was freezing. The sword god's seal on his forehead was shaking incessantly, and his sword intent was fluctuating between a strong and weak state. Moreover, it was very violent. It wasn't just his sword intent. Even his aura was very chaotic. He'd been suffering backlash from improving his sword intent, and then he forcefully ignited his soul to attain the Emperor realm. So, the backlash he suffered didn't affect just his mind and soul, it affected his body as well. Double backlash. The reason he hadn't lost consciousness was entirely because of his willpower. Zir was right before him, so how could he lose consciousness? It was exactly his willpower that had allowed him to kill 2 voiders in succession while suffering the backlash from his sword intent and even prevent himself from losing consciousness until now. As she gazed at Yang Yi, Zir's heart felt like it was bleeding. She hugged him tightly and spoke with a trembling voice. Let's go. As soon as she finished speaking, she took Yang Yi along as she transformed into a ray of violet light that vanished on the spot. The demon race. In the Demon Empress Palace, the Empress who sat cross-legged at its entrance suddenly opened her eyes, and then a smile curled up on the corners of her mouth. 11 out of 14 voiders perished. Ha ha! Looks like allowing Yang Yi to return was the right choice. As she spoke, she looked up at the sky and said, "Such forbearance. He didn't act even after so many voiders died." Interesting indeed. Mo Xiaoling, who was beside the Demon Empress, spoke coldly. That fellow Yang Yi is really a fool. He actually let 3 escape. The Empress chuckled softly and said, "He's extremely formidable." Her face gradually became solemn at this point. "He's a true genius. If he's given another 5 years, then there'll probably be no one on this continent who'd be a match for him. Of course, my Xiaoling is excluded from that." Mo Xiaoling gently rubbed the multicolored snake on her arm and said, "While I don't like him, his natural talent is extremely formidable. He can be considered a genius even in the large world. Of course, there's quite a gap between us. Because his bloodline is of a low grade, so his accomplishments are limited. Unless he can overcome the shackles of his bloodline. Otherwise, he can only be considered a genius and not a monstrous genius. But the shackles of one's bloodline is difficult, extremely difficult. Even that fellow from this world of yours, who was once called the Sword God, had been unable to accomplish that." The Demon Empress frowned slightly. "His bloodline?" Mo Xiaoling spoke indifferently. "Besides their own harm, work, and luck, the reason many geniuses are able to advance to the Emperor realm or Voider realm in a short time is their bloodline. Just like me. The reason I'm able to attain such accomplishments at my age is mainly my bloodline." The Demon Empress fell silent for a short while before she said, "Then since Yang Yi had been able to attain his current accomplishments in such a short time and possess such terrifying strength, is it because his bloodline is of a very high grade?" Mo Xiaoling frowned slightly, and she remained silent for a short while before she replied, "I didn't sense anything special about his bloodline. There are 3 reasons for that. The first is that he hasn't awakened it. The second is he doesn't possess a formidable bloodline. The third is..." The Demon Empress asked, "What is it?" Mo Xiaoling answered, "His bloodline is greater than mine, so I can't sense it, but that's utterly impossible. Because no person or demon's bloodline is more noble than mine in this universe. Even the Heavenly Dragon clan is only on par with my divine, on par with the bloodline of my clan." As she finished speaking, Mo Xiaoling's voice was filled with incomparable confidence and pride. Mo Xiaoling was very confident and proud, but she didn't make others feel like she was acting, nor did it make others feel uncomfortable. It felt like she should be that confident and proud. The Demon Empress glanced at Mo Xiaoling. Obviously, Mo Xiaoling refused to reveal her identity to the Demon Empress. However, the Demon Empress was a smart person, so she didn't ask. There was always a limit to things, and if one went past those limits, then even friends were very likely to become enemies. The Demon Empress stood up slowly and walked over to Mo Xiaoling's side. She took Mo Xiaoling's hand before starting to walk towards the distance. At the same time, the Demon Empress' voice resounded through the sky. "Tell the leaders of the 12 clans to see me. I want to see them within 10 breaths of time. Besides that, order all the demon beasts at the Emperor realm and above to prepare themselves and await my command." As soon as she finished, she looked down and glanced at Mo Xiaoling before she said, The human race is unnecessary in this world. Heaven Pillar Peak. Yang Yi has betrayed the human race. These were the first words that Nye Hun spoke upon returning to Heaven Pillar Peak. It didn't take long for Nye Clan's forces to spread the news of Yang Ye's betrayal throughout the continent. As for whether Yang Yi had really betrayed the human race and sided with the demon race, no one thought about that, because everyone said that he had. At this moment, countless people throughout the Veiled region were cursing Yang Yi, and there were even some profounders who'd formed groups to search for Yang Yi with the intention of eliminating him for the human race. However, once they heard that Yang Yi had killed over 10 voiders at the Nye Clan, all of those people who wanted to eliminate him on behalf of the human race had instantly vanished. Since they couldn't act against him, they could only use their mouths. So, everyone throughout the Veiled region was cursing Yang Yi, and even the Sword Alliance and Slayer Pavilion weren't able to avoid being implicated. As for the main character of the incident, Yang Yi, life was worse than death for him right now. Zir had brought Yang Yi to a dense forest. Yang Yi was lying on a huge rock while his body twitched incessantly. His face wasn't just pale as a sheet, it was even severely warped. He looked rather fierce and terrifying. It would be comparatively better if he'd fallen unconscious, but he just so happened to be awake. As far as Yang Yi was concerned, there was nothing more painful in the world than this. Zir was at quite a loss for what to do, because she didn't know how to help Yang Yi at all. If it was possible, she was willing to help Yang Yi endure such pain, but it wasn't. She felt helpless. She could only watch as Yang Yi suffered. Meanwhile, Yang Yi opened his eyes and gazed at Zir. As he looked at her face that was covered in tears, a smile appeared on his ghastly pale face. It's just a while of pain. It'll pass very quickly. Zir didn't speak, and she just cried and cried. A bitter smile curled up on the corners of Yang Ye's mouth. He'd forcefully improved his sword intent, and then he'd ignited his soul to improve his cultivation. This time, it wasn't just his sword intent that would drop. Even his cultivation might drop as well. I really did it this time. What should I do? I don't want to lose my sword intent or cultivation. Regardless of whether it was his sword intent or cultivation that dropped, it would be a heavy blow to Yang Yi, because it meant that his strength would drop tremendously. Yet now, it was very likely for both his cultivation and sword intent to drop. Once that happened, it would definitely be a calamity for him. However, even if he did it all over again, he would still choose to ignite his soul. After all, losing a portion of his cultivation and sword intent was better than death. Yang Yi heaved out a long breath of air, and then he closed his eyes slowly and waited for his sword intent and cultivation to drop. At this moment, his sword intent was at the rebirth rank while his cultivation was at the Emperor realm. But he knew that it wouldn't be at that level soon. Suddenly, Yang Yi frowned because the tiny vortex within him suddenly spun. A moment of silence ensued before Yang Yi hurriedly said, "Give me violet crystals." Yang Ye's voice was trembling because the tiny vortex had asked for spirit energy. In other words, it intended to help him? Just thinking about that caused hope to burn once more within Yang Yi. Zir was stunned, and then she hurriedly withdrew violet crystals and fed them to Yang Yi. A few breaths of time later, Yang Yi shook his head and said, "This isn't working. It's too slow. Quickly get Snowy out here." As soon as Yang Yi finished speaking, Zir hurriedly waved her right hand. In an instant, Snowy emerged from Yang Ye's chest. At this moment, she was clearly sleeping, and both her eyes were closed. Zir grabbed Snowy and patted her but lightly. After that, Zir pointed at Yang Yi and said, "Give him spirit energy. Quickly, the more the better, and the faster the better." Snowy opened her eyes. When she saw the anxiousness in Zir's eyes, she blinked and followed along Zir's hand to gaze at Yang Yi. As soon as she saw Yang Ye's horrifying state, she instantly shuddered before pouncing onto Yang Ye's chest. She ceaselessly rubbed her head against Yang Ye's chest and seemed as if she was asking, "How did this happen to you?" Yang Yi didn't know whether he should laugh or cry, and he could only gaze at Zir. Zir hurriedly grabbed Snowy and said, "Stop crying for now. He needs spirit energy. Give him spirit energy. He needs a huge amount of it." Snowy raised her little claw and wiped away the tears of spirit energy on the corners of her eyes. And then she didn't hesitate to fly over to Yang. She wrapped her claws around Yang Ye's face before pressing her mouth against Yang Ye's mouth. After that, Yang Yi and Zir watched with astonishment as strands of seemingly solid profound energy surged out madly from her mouth and into Yang Ye's mouth. Yang Ye's eyes instantly opened wide because his stomach was expanding at a visible speed. He hurriedly gazed at Zir to plead for help, and then Zir quickly grabbed Snowy. Snowy blinked while bewilderment filled her eyes. Cough! Yang Yi coughed, and then a strand of spirit energy instantly emerged from his mouth. He gazed at Snowy and laughed bitterly. It's too much. Take it slow. Don't give me so much right away. Earlier, the spirit energy that entered him had almost filled him up to the point of exploding. Snowy revealed a brilliant smile. She flew over to Yang Yi, kissed Yang Yi again, and then spirit energy surged slowly into Yang Yi. The tiny vortex immediately started spinning when the spirit energy entered him, and then all the spirit energy was completely absorbed by it. It didn't take long for threads of violet energy to emerge from the tiny vortex. Once the violet energy flowed out, it was swiftly absorbed by Yang Ye's body. As more and more violet energy was absorbed into his body, Yang Yi noticed that his body was undergoing some sort of change. However, his cultivation had still dropped to the quasi-emperor realm. But Yang Yi was pleasantly surprised to notice that it didn't stop further. He'd expected that it was very likely for his cultivation to decline to the saint realm, because when he'd done so in the past and suffered the backlash from it, it would cause him to lose a realm of cultivation or even more. Yet now, his cultivation had actually not declined. It hadn't dropped. Yang Yi was overjoyed. His life would truly be filled with darkness if it fell to the saint realm. After all, he had to return to the radiant dimension and look for Lady as well. If he became a saint, how could he return to the radiant dimension or go see Lady? Actually, that was quite far away. Even if pressing matters were considered, he wouldn't be able to resist the Nye clan if his cultivation fell to the saint realm. Fortunately, it hadn't. Suddenly, Yang Ye's expression changed because his sword intent was starting to undergo a change. Am I going to drop back down to the void rank? Yang Ye's heart tensed up. The tiny vortex could help him stabilize his cultivation, but it couldn't stabilize his sword intent. The sword god's seal. Yang Yi suddenly thought of the sword god's seal, and then he hurriedly activated it. In an instant, it appeared on his forehead. As soon as that happened, Yang Yi was pleasantly surprised because the sword intent around him started to stabilize. It didn't take long for his sword intent to grow more and more stable, and it showed no signs of dropping. Around an hour later, Yang Yi truly heaved a sigh of relief. His sword intent had stabilized. Both his sword intent and cultivation had stabilized. Yang Yi took a deep breath and gazed at Snowy. He grinned, grabbed her, and kissed her. This time it was actually all thanks to Snowy. If Snowy hadn't provided so much spirit energy to him, then even the tiny vortex wouldn't have been able to help him, because his cultivation had been stabilized by relying on countless strands of primordial violet energy. If the spirit energy he provided the tiny vortex was insufficient, his cultivation would definitely drop. At that time, even the tiny vortex wouldn't be able to turn the situation around. Snowy wrapped her claws around Yang Yi and rubbed her head lightly against Yang Ye's face. She was smiling as well when she saw that Yang Yi was fine. Zir heaved a sigh of relief, walked over to Yang Ye's side, and then held Yang Ye's hand tightly. Earlier, she was absolutely worried. Fortunately, Yang Yi was fine. Yang Yi glanced at Zir, glanced at Snowy, and then smiled. I'm fine now. He knew that the state he was in just now had terrified them. Especially Zir, her face was still covered in tears. After playing with Zir and Snowy for a while, Yang Yi sat cross-legged and quickly recovered his profound energy with Snowy's help. Moreover, he returned to his prime as well. Yang Yi stood up and gazed at Zir. A faint palm print still lingered on her right cheek. It was Nyehun who left it on her cheek. Yang Ye's face instantly turned gloomy at the sight of it. He'd wanted to kill Nyehun earlier, But Niehun was the strongest, so it was impossible to kill Niehun with a single attack. Moreover, once he was locked in combat with Niehun, it would definitely waste a huge amount of time. But at that time was what he lacked the most. So, he hadn't chosen to attack and kill Niehun first. As for when he'd ignited his soul, attained the Emperor realm, and had the strength to kill Niehun. Niehun had fled so quickly that it was too late for Yang Yi to kill him. Zir took Yang Yi's hand and shook her head slightly. "I'm fine now." Yang Yi took a deep breath and touched her cheek gently. A short while passed before a vicious glow flashed through his eyes. "Let's go." As he spoke, he took Zir's hand and shot up into the sky. This isn't the way back to Dark Hell Continent. "Where are you going?" "I'm going to take the head of that fellow who hit you." Heaven Pillar Peak. Niehun sat at the seat of the host within a palace hall. The experts of the 3 sects and 6 cities were before him. Actually, it was only 3 sects and 3 cities, because the Yuan clan, Yun clan, and Qin clan had been annihilated. The atmosphere here was quite heavy. It wasn't a secret that Yang Yi had killed around 10 voiders of the Nie clan. In other words, the Nie clan had suffered heavy losses. Now, the human race had a powerful enemy like the demon race. In short, the human race's future was worrying. Actually, the 3 sects and 3 cities were quite displeased with the Nie clan. Because if Nie Tian hadn't joined forces with Senior Yuan's group to kill the experts of Slayer Pavilion, Yang Yi would have definitely not flared up like that. It could be said that the Nie clan bore the greatest responsibility for the situation becoming what it was. However, they would naturally not speak about it right now. The Nie clan had suffered heavy losses. If they acted against the Nie clan now, then the human race would really have no hope. Moreover, once the demon army breached Heaven Pillar Peak, then not to mention their homes in the Veiled region, even they would be unable to avoid death and destruction. Now, it was a moment that required them to be united. Suddenly, Nie Qing walked in, and her face was quite unsightly. Niehun gazed at her and asked, "What is it?" Nie Qing spoke solemnly. "The demon race has started to move. I knew Yang Yi had sided with the demon race. It really is as we'd expected." Niehun clenched his fists tightly as he glanced at the experts here. "Everyone, just look. The demon race just happened to attack at a time like this. Why? It's because of Yang Yi. Yang Yi has betrayed the human race. It was definitely the demon race that made him attack my Nie clan earlier." Lin Qian and the others fell silent, and their faces were quite unsightly. Has Yang Yi really sided with the demon race? If he really has, then it's definitely a calamity for the human race. After all, besides Yang Yi's own strength, he had the Slayer Pavilion and Sword Alliance. Their joint forces couldn't be underestimated, especially Yang Yi and the Slayer Pavilion. Could anyone stop them if they concealed themselves and assassinated the people here? Just thinking about it caused their hearts to grow even heavier. Meanwhile, Niehun suddenly stood up and said, "Everyone, internal issues should be resolved first before external issues can be considered. So, I've decided to annihilate the Sword Alliance, Slayer Pavilion, and Yang Yi before putting our full strength to dealing with the demon race. Otherwise, if Yang Yi's forces stab us in the back while we're fighting the demon race. Everyone, I'm sure all of you don't want to be targeted by a group of assassins, right?" "I object." Lin Qian stepped forward and said, "Brother Niehun, the demon race's army is about to attack. If we go attack Yang Yi now, we'll definitely suffer a pincer attack. If that happens, the situation will be even more disadvantageous to us. So, we should summon all the experts of the Veiled region to Heaven Pillar Peak and defend it to our deaths. We should protect the human race and not seek revenge from Yang Yi." "I agree." Meanwhile, Old Man Shui from the Skywave sect stepped forward as well. "Our main priority is to defend Heaven Pillar Peak." Niehun glanced at them and spoke coldly. "That's true. But have you thought about what we would do if Yang Yi leads his group of assassins to suddenly launch a surprise attack on us while we're in battle with the demon race? Don't tell me he wouldn't. No one can guarantee that." Lin Qian and Old Man Shui fell silent. Meanwhile, Niehun added, "Why don't we do this? We'll send some forces to capture those fellows in the Sword Alliance, and then use them to threaten Yang Yi so that... Nyehan had just spoken up to this point when something unexpected occurred. A ray of light suddenly appeared here. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically, and the hairs on Nyehan's body even stood on end. Yang Yi. That was the first thought that came to their minds. Yang Yi had come back. At the moment he saw the ray of light, Nyehan's hairs had stood on end because it was aimed at him. Yang Yi had come back to kill him. What a madman. Nyehan wasn't the only one who hadn't expected Yang Yi to come back. Everyone here hadn't expected Yang Yi to actually attack Heaven Pillar Peak again. After all, it was the Nye clan's base. Nyehan didn't have the time to think. At the moment the ray of light appeared, a terrifying aura erupted from within him and formed a shield before him. At the same time, numerous strands of seemingly solid golden, profound energy formed barriers that layered around him. They formed at least 10,000 layers. However, Nyehan still didn't feel at ease, and he withdrew a shield and raised it in front of himself. Hiss! As soon as Nyehan's aura came into contact with the ray of light, it dispersed in an instant. The blood-red sword stabbed straight through onto the profound energy barriers. The barriers shook slightly before collapsing in an instant. After that, the sword struck against the shield before Nyehan. The shield wasn't at the void rank, so the sword wasn't obstructed at all and pierced straight through it. However, Nyehan had already vanished on the spot. At the moment Nyehan's figure vanished, the ray of light vanished as well. After that, the space in the surroundings trembled slightly before a ray of light suddenly flashed out from space, and Nyehan was like 3 m away from it. Nyehan's expression changed when he noticed the ray of light. However, he was on guard now, so he was about to react. Suddenly, he frowned because the ray of light was just a strand of sword energy. In other words, Yang Yi wasn't in front of him. Nyehan seemed to have thought of something, and his pupils suddenly constricted before he swiftly turned to look at Nye Tian. "Watch out!" Nye Tian was slightly stunned. Suddenly, he seemed to have thought of something, and his expression changed drastically. He was just about to move away when the space around him suddenly contracted. At the same time, a strand of terrifying sword intent pressed down upon him. The contraction of space coupled with the suppression of the sword intent caused his movement to slow down momentarily, and it was exactly that instant which allowed a ray of light to pierce through his forehead. Nye Tian's eyes opened wide. Hiss! A string of blood sprayed from his forehead, and then Nye Tian's corpse vanished on the spot along with Yang Yi. "Where do you think you're going?" Nyehan was furious. He stretched his hand forward and made a clawing motion. The space in the distance warped in an instant, but it only took a moment for the space there to return to normal. Nyehan was stunned, and then his face became extremely unsightly, because Yang Yi was gone. A humiliation. Nyehan clenched his fists while seemingly material-killing intent could be seen in his eyes. Yang Yi had already killed so many voiders of the Nye clan, and it had caused the Nye clan to be completely disgraced. Yet now, Yang Yi had just come straight to the Nye clan and killed a voider before swaggering off. It was an absolute humiliation. It was definitely an absolute humiliation to the Nye clan. The experts of the 3 sects and 3 cities remained silent. They'd witnessed Yang Yi's strength. It wouldn't be that bad if it was a head-on battle, but if Yang Yi were to hide and launch surprise attacks, then could anyone stop him? Besides Nyehan, no one else here could resist Yang Yi's attacks. Moreover, even Nyehan couldn't keep up with Yang Yi's speed. They were sandwiched between the demon race and Yang Yi. All of them had extremely solemn expressions on their faces, especially the members of the Nye clan. Yang Yi was clearly targeting them. In other words, they never knew when Yang Yi might suddenly launch an attack on them. Just thinking about it caused the countenances of countless members of the Nye clan, including Nye Qing, to turn pale. Suddenly, a profounder of the Nye clan charged into the hall. His face was quite pale while terror could be seen in his eyes. He seemed like he'd encountered something terrifying. Nyehan spoke in a low voice. "What's going on?" That profounder gulped and replied, "They're dead. So many are dead. So many just suddenly had their heads chopped off." Nyehan's expression changed, and he shot out of the hall with the others. There were corpses everywhere. All of them belonged to the emperors of the Nye clan. All of them had no heads, and the cut on their necks were smooth like a mirror. It had been done by a sword. Yang Yi. Nye Hun clenched his fists tightly while a ferocious expression covered his face. He didn't have to think to know that it was Yang Yi who'd done it. However, that wasn't the end. Corpses were appearing successively throughout Heaven Pillar Peak. All of them lost their lives from a single attack and didn't even have the chance to let out a shrill cry. In just 15 minutes, around 300 headless corpses had appeared in the Nye clan, and all of them belonged to emperors. At this moment, Yang Yi was like a god of death, and he was ceaselessly reaping the lives of the Nye clan's experts. Nye Hun leaped up into the air, and then he glanced at the surroundings and spoke fiercely. Yang Yi, you like to kill? Huh? Alright, I'll let you do that. I'm heading to Dark Hell Continent right now, and I'll annihilate everyone in your sword alliance. As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shot towards the distance. He was very well aware that there was only one way to make Yang Yi show himself, and it was to attack the sword alliance. Because if Yang Yi cared about it, he would definitely stop and fight him. Suddenly, a ray of light flashed through the air and instantly arrived before Nye Hun. A wisp of ferocity arose on the corners of Nye Hun's mouth. He'd guessed that this would happen, so he tapped his finger forward at the same time the ray of light appeared. A circle of white light immediately erupted from his finger. Bang! As soon as the ray of light and the circle of white light came into contact, a terrifying wave of energy immediately erupted and shot swiftly towards the surroundings. In an instant, the sky was covered in the wave of energy. The space throughout the sky started to tremble violently before it, and it was an absolutely shocking sight. OM! Suddenly, a sword howl resounded in the sky, and then everyone watched as a ray of sword energy appeared in the sky and shot towards Nye Hun. Not only was the wave of energy torn apart in its wake, even space was torn apart with ease. Nye Hun's face was gloomy, and white light flickered on his right hand. If Yang Yi raised his sword intent to a higher level or increased his cultivation to the Emperor realm, then Nye Hun might fear Yang Yi a little. Yet now, Yang Ye's combat strength was just stronger than an ordinary voider, and it was far from sufficient to pose a threat to him. When the sword energy arrived around 50 m away from him, Nye Hun flipped his palm and slapped it forward. A ray of white light formed a crescent that shot out from his palm. The sword energy and crescent of white light slammed against each other in midair. Bang! They exploded on contact. Meanwhile, another ray of sword energy tore through the sky and shot towards Nye Hun. This time, it was extremely swift and a few times swifter than the last strand of sword energy. Nye Hun's pupils had constricted slightly at the sight of it, and he instinctively raised his right hand and slammed it forward. A ray of white light instantly surged forward. Bang! Rumbling resounded as the sword energy was dispersed. But a sword had appeared in Nye Hun's field of vision, and when the sword collided with the white light was instantly sliced apart before the sword continued forward and arrived in front of Nye Hun. Yang Yi was behind the sword. The sword had just arrived before him when the powerful force it carried slammed Nye Hun around 10 steps back. Meanwhile, the sword had arrived just a few dozen centimeters away from Nye Hun's forehead. Nye Hun's eyes narrowed slightly while he pressed his palms together and clamped down on Yang Ye's sword. Once he did that, he turned to look at the others from the 3 sects and 3 cities before speaking angrily. What are all of you still watching for? Quickly kill him. He'd realized that just his strength was utterly insufficient to kill Yang Yi, because the laws of time were useless against Yang Yi. The experts of the 3 cities and 3 sects looked at each other. Kill Yang Yi? Yang Yi was clearly just attacking the Nye clan now. If they acted against him, it would be equivalent to declaring war against Yang Yi. Based on Yang Ye's character, he would definitely take revenge on them. But if they didn't attack and allowed Yang Yi to continue killing, then the human race's experts would have been almost annihilated before the demon race even attacks. All of them were quite hesitant. They were hesitant, but the experts of the Nye clan didn't dare to hesitate. The only remaining voider here, Nye Qing, immediately shot towards Yang Yi. Yang Yi turned to glance at Nye Qing. A moment later, the wings behind him flapped, and then he instantly vanished on the spot. Nye Hun cried out involuntarily, "Watch out!" As soon as his voice resounded, Nye Qing's expression changed drastically. She was just about to retreat when a strand of sword intent suddenly pressed down upon her. At the same time, the space around her suddenly froze and weighed down upon her. The weight of space and the pressure from the sword intent instantly immobilized her. Meanwhile, a ray of light pierced through her forehead. Nye Qing's eyes opened wide. A moment of silence ensued before a wisp of misery appeared on the corners of her mouth. I shouldn't have brought you here. Hiss. As soon as she finished speaking, a strand of blood sprayed from her forehead, and then the color in Nye Qing's eyes dimmed down. Yang Yi waved his right hand behind Nye Qing and stored her corpse in his spatial ring. Yang Yi. Nye Hun's eyes almost split apart with rage. He was about to attack when the furious howls of demon beasts suddenly resounded from outside Heaven Pillar Peak. After that, the ground seemed to tremble while a huge black cloud appeared in the sky. The black cloud was approaching rapidly. The demon race was attacking. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically at the sight of this. Meanwhile, Lin Qian stepped forward and cupped his fist to Yang Yi. "Brother Yang Yi, it's a moment of life and death for the human race right now. Please put aside your enmity and face the demon race with us." The Nye clan had suffered heavy losses while 3 of the 6 cities had been annihilated by Yang Yi. So if Yang Yi was still unwilling to help them resist the demon race, then the human race would truly be finished. Yang Yi looked up at the sky, and then a cold smile arose on the corners of his mouth. "Fight the demon race? Do I have nothing better to do?" The expressions of everyone here instantly became unsightly when they heard Yang Yi. Fight the demon race? If the Nye clan hadn't done what it had done, then Yang Yi might help them against the demon race. After all, allowing the demon race into the human race's territory wasn't beneficial to him at all. However, the Nye clan had clearly caused this war on purpose. The Nye clan wanted to use them to keep the entire demon race busy, and while they fought with their lives against the demon race, the Nye clan would try to benefit from it. Yang Yi would naturally not do something like that. If it was put in simpler terms, the Nye clan wanted to use morals and righteousness to bind them to this. Besides doing it for the sake of the human race, the experts of the 3 cities and 3 sects had stayed behind for another reason, and it was that their homes were in the Veiled region. Once Heaven Pillar Peak was breached, everything they had in the Veiled region would be gone. So, even if they knew something was off, they still intended to stay and fight the demon race with the Nye clan. What about Yang Yi? He only had the Slayer Pavilion in the Veiled region, but they'd left the Veiled region. So, it could be said that he had no further ties to the Veiled region. Moreover, why was the demon race attacking? Wasn't it because the Nye clan was scheming to seize a treasure that belonged to the demon race? The Nye clan hadn't hesitated to start a war in order to obtain a treasure that belonged to the demon race, and it even dragged down all the profounders of the human race. So, how could Yang Yi possibly help the Nye clan against the demon race? Yang Yi paid no attention to the others here, and he just glanced coldly at Nye Hun. Nye Hun was looking at Yang Yi as well, and killing intent flickered in his eyes. Yang Yi didn't attack again. His figure shook and vanished on the spot. It was impossible for him to kill Nye Hun in a head-on battle unless he raised his sword intent to the quasi-returnal rank again or used his sword intent to improve his cultivation again. However, Yang Yi wouldn't dare do that again. He had good luck earlier, so his sword intent and cultivation hadn't dropped. But if he did it again, he might not have such good luck again. Nye Hun's face grew even more unsightly when he saw Yang Yi conceal himself again. If Yang Yi didn't have the sword domain, then it would really be quite easy for him to kill Yang Yi. It would be the same even if Yang Yi raised his sword intent or cultivation to a higher level. But Yang Yi possessed the sword domain, and it completely suppressed his laws of time. He was just slightly stronger than an ordinary voider once he lost the advantage from the laws of time. Simply speaking, he was helpless against Yang Yi. Whenever he thought about how the Nye clan had lost around a dozen voiders and a few hundred emperors, Nye Hun's heart felt like it was bleeding. They were experts that the Nye clan had used innumerable years to foster, yet now they were gone in just a short span of time. As for the reason why all this happened, it was because of a decision Nye Tian had made. There hadn't been any irreconcilable enmity between Yang Yi and the Nye clan, but Nye Tian had foolishly chosen to try and bring balance to the strengths of both sides, and he decided to help the Yuan clan's forces annihilate the experts of Slayer Pavilion. In the end, they failed to kill their targets and caused the Nye clan to lose so many experts instead. Even Nye Tian himself died because of it. It wasn't worth it. It really wasn't worth it. Bang! Suddenly, Heaven Pillar Peak shook violently. Everyone here was shocked and hurriedly turned around. They saw a group of enormous mammoths charging in their direction. The mammoths were truly too huge. Just their heights were around 300 m, so they simply seemed like mountains. All of the mammoths were covered in thick black scale armor. Especially the mammoth that led the group, it even had a sharp spike that was around 30 m long. There were many mammoths in the group, and there were just around 200 of them. Even though they were quite small in number, the expressions of the experts on Heaven Pillar Peak had changed drastically, because they could imagine that if those huge fellows were allowed to approach Heaven Pillar Peak, then it was obvious that Heaven Pillar Peak wouldn't be able to endure their assault. Behind the group of mammoths was another group of huge demon beasts. These demon beasts were like cows, but they only had 2 legs and were standing upright. Their figures were around 10 m tall, and they held pitch-black javelins in their hands and were covered in black armor. There were exactly 3,000 of them, and they were following closely behind the mammoth in an orderly manner while emanating an imposing aura. On the left of these demon beasts was a group of demon beasts that looked like sword-toothed tigers. They were in black armor as well, but there were only 1,000 of them. They were following closely behind the mammoths as well, and they marched forward in an orderly manner as well. On the right of the demon beasts that looked like cows was a group of flaming lions. Even though there were only 500 of them, they were huge and possessed powerful auras. They were the strongest group besides the mammoths. Besides these groups of demon beasts, there was another group on the group that was especially striking, and it was the group of pythons at the leftmost of the group. The pythons were completely pitch black and simply comparable in size to the mammoths. They were in a neat row that crawled behind the mammoths. Even though there were less than 100 of them, they emanated extreme pressure upon others. Especially their size, it was truly fearsome. Besides the forces on the ground, there was a group of dark blue rocks in the sky. Every single rock was extraordinarily huge, especially when their wings were spread out. The world instantly dimmed down below them, and it seemed like night had arrived. There were huge crimson wolves on the backs of those rocks. The crimson wolves were baring their fangs ferociously, and they seemed ready to pounce on and devour their prey. There was only a single golden eagle in the distant sky. It was around 1 kilometer wide, and it was the largest amongst the demon beasts here. It was at the Voider realm. There were 2 people on its back, the Demon Empress and Mo Shaoling. The expressions of everyone on Heaven Pillar Peak became extremely unsightly when they saw the demon race's army. They'd thought that the demon race's strength was just slightly superior to them. But now it would seem like they weren't just slightly strong, they were much stronger. Stay calm. Meanwhile, Nye Hun glanced at them and said, "While the demon race's forces are powerful, we have a natural barrier, Heaven Pillar Peak. They won't be able to do anything to us. Tell everyone to prepare and await my command." The others exchanged glances, and then they nodded. They naturally couldn't fall into chaos at a time like this. Nye Hun raised his right hand, and then around 10,000 pitch-black cannons appeared on the mountain walls of Heaven Pillar Peak. Attack! Nye Hun swiftly dropped his right hand. In an instant, the cannons fired in unison, and then around 10,000 beams of light were blasted at the army of demon beasts. The demon empress on the distant cloud eagle raised her right hand slightly, and then she dropped it gently. Ward! Bang! As soon as she finished speaking, the others watched with astonishment as the ground before the mammoths suddenly cracked open, and then hundreds of ink-black turtles shot up into the air. After that, the turtles quickly converged together with their backs facing Heaven Pillar Peak. They'd formed a super turtle shell shield that was around 30 kilometers wide. Bang! 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 The beams of light slammed against the turtle shells, and then rumbling explosions resounded incessantly like thunderclaps. The turtle shell shield started to tremble, but it didn't take long for strands of flowing light to appear on the shells. Once the flowing light appeared, the shield instantly stabilized. In next to no time, all the beams of light had vanished, but the turtle shell shield hadn't suffered even a shred of damage. The demon beast army hadn't stopped, and they were continuing their march towards Heaven Pillar Peak. As for the turtle shell shield, it started to approach Heaven Pillar Peak slowly. It was orderly, extremely orderly, and without any disorder. The expressions of the experts on Heaven Pillar Peak instantly became unsightly at the sight of this. They'd thought that the demon beasts only knew how to use brute force. But now that they'd witnessed the scene before them, they knew that they were wrong. The demon beast army was much more disciplined than the human army. The army of demon beasts didn't charge all the way in one go, and they marched slowly in Heaven Pillar Peak's direction. But it was exactly why every single expert on Heaven Pillar Peak felt heavy pressure weight down on them. As the demon race's army marched forward, the hearts of all the experts on Heaven Pillar Peak grew heavier and heavier. All of them were looking at Niehun and awaiting his orders. Niehun stared fixedly at the demon empress, and a short while passed before he waved his right hand. "Activate the formations!" Bang! As soon as he finished speaking, the entire mountain trembled violently, and then a ray of dazzling light erupted from the mountain. It didn't take long for the light to disperse, and then a silver energy barrier appeared on the mountain wall of Heaven Pillar Peak. After that, the barrier of light shook intensely, and then numerous silver beams of light erupted from it and shot forward. In just an instant, the entire sky was covered in silver beams of light, and it was an extremely shocking sight. Suddenly, the huge turtle shell shield in midair started to spin. It spun faster and faster. In the end, it transformed into a vortex, and the beams of silver light were completely absorbed by the vortex. In next to no time, all the beams of silver light had vanished, and the huge turtle shell shield stopped spinning as well. There was a layer of faint silver light on the shield, but the light was gradually dispersing. The experts on Heaven Pillar Peak had even more unsightly expressions on their faces. The demon race had clearly come prepared. They have a counter for the formation, so does that mean we have to fight the demon race directly? The strength of humans had always been inferior to demon beasts, and coupled with the battle between Yang Yi and the Nye clan, the human race's overall strength was much more inferior now. So, heading down the mountain to fight the demon race directly would definitely be no different than courting death. Everyone gazed at Niehun. Heaven Pillar Peak was the Nye clan's territory, and the Nye clan had existed for so long, so it definitely had other trump cards. Niehun gazed at the demon beasts below, but his face was exceptionally calm. No one knew what he was thinking. Mo Xiaoling spoke while standing on the Cloud Eagle's back. "Why aren't we attacking right away?" The demon empress chuckled. "There's no rush. Take it slow." Mo Xiaoling didn't speak further. The demon empress gazed at Heaven Pillar Peak while a slight smile appeared on the corners of her mouth. The demon race's army was growing closer to Heaven Pillar Peak, and there was only a few hundred kilometers left between them and Heaven Pillar Peak. However, Niehun didn't act at all. All the humans were prepared to fight, and they were just waiting for Niehun's command. It didn't take long for the mammoths to arrive just around 20 m away from the mountain walls of Heaven Pillar Peak. Bang! Suddenly, 12 rays of light shot up into the air from within the Nye clan, and then they shot through the sky in the direction of the demon race's territory. 12 voiders. Everyone on Heaven Pillar Peak was stunned. The Nye clan still has 12 voiders? The demon empress chuckled and said, "They're finally unable to hold back anymore?" As soon as she finished speaking, the demon empress' voice became cold, and she waved her right hand. "Attack!" Once she finished speaking, her figure shot up into the air towards the 12 rays of light. At the same time, 10 other figures within the army shot up into the air and followed closely behind her. Voider Realm Demon Beasts. Suddenly, those 12 voiders of the Nye clan sped up, and they transformed into a speck of light that vanished into the sky. The demon empress' eyes narrowed slightly. She waved her hands and the space before her shook violently. A huge spatial rift appeared before her, and it didn't take long for her to enter it with those 10 Voider Realm demon beasts. Meanwhile, on Heaven Pillar Peak, Niehun suddenly soared into the air and said, "Everyone, the experts of my Nye clan have headed to attack the demon race's base camp. So come with me and kill the others." As soon as he finished speaking, his figure shot towards the distance. Lin Qian and the others hesitated briefly before they charged after him. The Voiders of the Nye clan had drawn away the Voiders of the demon race, so the other demon beasts outside weren't a huge threat to them. Thus, it was the best moment for them to deal with the demon beasts. All the human experts on Heaven Pillar Peak charged down the mountain. The war erupted. Mo Xiaoling had a wisp of ridicule on the corners of her mouth as she stood on the eagle. She tapped the eagle's back lightly with her right foot, and then it instantly flapped its wings and transformed into a gale that vanished on the spot. Bang! At the same time, a strand of golden flames shot up into the air and swept towards Niehun's group. Niehun's expression changed. He didn't dare act carelessly when he noticed the energy contained within the golden flames, and his profound energy surged madly before he slapped his right palm forward. A circle of white light immediately swept out from his palm, and it instantly collided with the golden flames. Bang! As soon as they collided, Niehun's expression changed again because the circle of white light had been instantly incinerated. Meanwhile, a young woman appeared in front of him. It was Mo Xiaoling, of course. Mo Xiaoling glanced coldly at Niehun, and then a tiny fire dragon suddenly shot out from the center of her brows and charged at Niehun. Niehun's pupils constricted. The profound energy within him surged madly as he slapped both his palms forward. An array of white light surged out from within him. Bang! Niehun's figure was blasted over 3 kilometers away while an explosion resounded. Once he stopped himself, Niehun was shocked because his hands were mangled and only bones remained on them. What flame is that? It can even destroy my profound energy barrier with ease. Mo Xiaoling was about to continue attacking when she suddenly frowned and looked towards the distance. The demon race's army was in a bad situation. They had comparatively fewer voiders, only 6. But the human race had 14 voiders. So, the demon race's voiders were at a disadvantage. Moreover, the humans had even sent 2 voiders to kill the emperor-rank demon beasts. Mo Xiaoling glanced coldly at the human voiders, and then she raised her right hand. In an instant, the multicolored python on her right arm shot forward. It expanded in midair and instantly transformed into a huge python. The multicolored python swung its tail, and it instantly swept towards the closest voider. Bang! That voider was caught off guard and instantly whipped around 5 kilometers away. The others here were shocked by this turn of events. Meanwhile, Mo Xiaoling tapped her right foot lightly against the cloud eagle before she soared up into the air. As soon as that happened, the eagle immediately transformed into a ray of light that shot towards a human voider. Once the multicolored python and cloud eagle joined the battle, the situation was instantly turned around. The human experts were completely suppressed. Even though the human voiders still outnumbered the voiders from the demon race, their quality was inferior. Moreover, the voiders from the demon race possessed extremely terrifying defensive abilities, especially when they were wearing emperor-rank armor. It caused the human voiders to have a huge headache when dealing with them. Without voiders to help them, the situation that the emperors of the human race were in while facing the emperors of the demon race could only be described as horrible. They were being crushed. Absolutely crushed. The human emperors were completely crushed by the emperors of the demon race. In next to no time, the over 100 human emperors had perished, but just around a dozen emperors from the demon race had perished. Something worth mentioning was that some human emperors had actually started to flee not long after the battle began. As for the demon race, they still maintained order, and the groups were even working together with each other. If the human race hadn't engaged in internal strife before this and working together wholeheartedly to fight the demon race, then perhaps it would have a chance. Yet now, the human experts were being slaughtered. There was a cold smile on the corners of Mo Xiaoling's mouth. She gazed at Niehun and didn't waste her breath at all. A tiny golden flame instantly appeared on her palm, and then she tossed it at Niehun. The flame grew in midair, and it only took a moment for it to transform into a 300 m long fire dragon. Once the golden dragon appeared, the space around it instantly became ethereal, and it seemed to be on the verge of being incinerated. It was a horrifying sight. Niehun's expression changed. He'd experienced the strength of those flames, so he didn't dare act carelessly at all. His profound energy surged while he formed strange seals with his right hand. Space instantly started to tremble violently once he started to form the seals, and it didn't take long for countless circles of dazzling white light to flash out from space. The circles of light overlapped upon each other before sweeping forward like a ripple. Bang! As soon as the flame dragon and ripple of white light collided, a rumbling explosion resounded. Countless waves of energy and flames swept towards the surroundings, but the waves of energy were instantly incinerated by the flames. Meanwhile, a small flame suddenly tore through the air and shot towards Niehun. Niehun's expression instantly changed drastically. This time he didn't fight it directly, and he just fled around 10 kilometers away. Emo Xiaoling was stunned when she saw Niehun flee. Obviously, she hadn't expected Niehun to flee. Niehun was a voider, a true voider. After she recovered from her surprise, Emo Xiaoling glanced at Niehun while she laughed with ridicule. Did you grow up on shit? Otherwise, why are you like trash? Niehun's face twitched and was extremely unsightly. Emo Xiaoling paid no attention to him. She gazed at another human voider, and then tossed the golden flame over. That voider was horrified. He'd seen how terrifying that flame was. Even Niehun couldn't resist it, let alone him. So, he immediately fled over 10 kilometers away. However, as soon as he fled, another voider behind him who wasn't able to flee in time had instantly suffered the consequences. That voider was caught off guard and was struck by the flame. A shrill and miserable cry resounded through the air, and it only took a moment for that voider to be incinerated into ash. All the other voiders were shocked. Who is she? What is that flame? It's actually so terrifying. All the voiders gazed at Emo Xiaoling with extreme vigilance as they were very afraid that she would toss the flame at them. The facts proved that Emo Xiaoling really was prepared to toss it at them. Another flame appeared on her palm. All the human voiders' expressions changed drastically at the sight of it, and then they moved back while their profound energy surged. They were ready to flee at any moment. Emo Xiaoling chuckled when she saw them react in that way, and then she tossed the flame. It left a very long trail of flames behind it as it shot forward. The voiders in the area hurriedly moved aside. They'd moved away, but the emperors behind them suffered calamity. Those emperors wanted to flee as well, but they couldn't flee because the flame was truly too swift. Bang! Around 10 emperors in that area weren't able to dodge in time, and they were obliterated on the spot without leaving even a trace behind. Meanwhile, another flame appeared on Emo Xiaoling's palm. Senior Nie. Meanwhile, Lin Qian, who was in battle with another voider, gazed at Niehun and roared with fury. Niehun was the only one amongst them who could fight the young woman. If he didn't act, then all the other voiders here would only suffer death if they faced her. As for the other voiders, it was obvious that they wouldn't even have the ability to fight back. Niehun stared fixedly at the young woman. At this moment, his hands had no flesh left on them, and only the bones there remained. He could regrow his severed limbs, but he was shocked to notice that he actually couldn't restore his lost flesh. He gazed at the golden flame on Emo Xiaoling's palm. What is that flame? After all, if he had just fled a moment later and allowed the flame to come into contact with him, he didn't dare think about the consequences. Emo Xiaoling paid no attention to the others and just tossed the golden flame again. This time, she tossed it at Lin Qian, who spoke a moment ago. Lin Qian's face turned grim, and he immediately abandoned the Voider Realm demon beast before him and vanished on the spot. However, as soon as he left, 3 emperors behind where he stood were struck by the flames. Those emperors didn't even get to let out a shrill cry before they were incinerated. Lin Qian's eyelids twitched. He turned around to look at Niehun, and then his face fell. Because since the very beginning, Niehun had no intention to do anything. He wanted to, but he wasn't a match for the young woman. Even if he tried, he would just be giving his life away. But Niehun was different. While he was no match for the young woman as well, He could keep her busy. Soldier against soldier, general against general. If Nyehan didn't fight her, then how could they deal with her when they weren't even on the same level as her? Meanwhile, another golden flame appeared on Emo Xiaoling's palm. At the same time, the emperors abandoned their opponents and fled in succession. Nyehan and the other voiders didn't dare to go head-on against Emo Xiaoling, so she would be absolutely able to annihilate all of them at will. Under such circumstances, how could they dare to stay here and fight? In the beginning, only some fled, but it didn't take long for more and more to flee. In just a few breaths of time, all the human emperors had actually started to flee. Actually, many human emperors had wanted to flee because the emperors of the demon race didn't just outnumber them, the emperors of the demon race were stronger than them as well. But they were very clearly aware that Heaven Pillar Peak would be finished if they fled. Once Heaven Pillar Peak was breached, the human race would be finished, because it was the last natural barrier that the human race had. So, even if they knew they were no match for the demon race, they were still fighting. Moreover, they had hope, and it was placed in the voiders fighting in midair. The number of human voiders surpassed the demon race. So long as those voiders could free themselves from their respective battles, then the situation would instantly turn around. However, they were disappointed. Not a single voider, not even Nyehan, dared to fight the young woman. No one dared to fight the young woman and were fleeing instead, and they were allowing her to kill emperors like them. So, would anyone be willing to stay and fight? At this moment, the human race wasn't in their minds anymore. In their opinion, since the voiders were fleeing, then they would flee as well. Everyone should flee. The human army instantly collapsed. The faces of the human voiders throughout the surroundings became extremely unsightly when they witnessed this scene. Could those emperors be blamed? Of course not, because most of those emperors were part of their clans or sections. Moreover, voiders like them should be dealing with the young woman. However, they didn't dare to go against her, and it caused those emperors to have to face her. Emperors would just be giving their lives away when facing her. They didn't even have the strength to fight back. Under such circumstances, to mention those emperors, even they would flee. Would anyone be willing to just give their lives away? The voiders of the 3 sects and 3 cities gazed at Nyehan, and their faces were extremely hostile. Nyehan was the only one here who could fight the young woman. Perhaps he couldn't defeat her, but he was absolutely capable of keeping her busy. Moreover, he was the only voider on the same level as the young woman. However, he'd chosen to flee without putting up a fight, and it caused the deaths of 2 voiders on their side. It was exactly why the demon race had instantly turned the situation around. The human voiders gazed at Nyehan when they thought up to this point, and their faces grew even more hostile. But Nyehan paid no attention to them, and he just gazed in the direction of the demon race's territory, while a trace of anxiousness could be seen in his eyes. Meanwhile, the young woman suddenly raised her hand and said, "Those big fellows at the front, knock down that mountain. Those fellows flying in the air, pursue those fleeing humans. Don't leave a single one alive. Kill them all." The expressions of everyone here changed, and they gazed at Nyehan. However, Nyehan paid no attention to them and was still looking in the direction of the demon race's territory. Lin Qian and the others' hearts blazed with rage, and Lin Qian glared angrily at Nyehan. "Nyehan, what exactly is your Nye clan planning?" Nyehan glanced at Lin Qian, and there was a trace of fervor and excitement in his eyes. "We plan to do something great. Great my ass." Lin Tian roared with fury. "Just take a look. Heaven Pillar Peak is about to be destroyed. It's about to be destroyed." Nyehan replied indifferently. "If it's destroyed, then it's destroyed. The demon race and everything else would be meaningless once my ancestor gets that treasure." "You!" Lin Qian and the others almost spat out a mouthful of blood. How could they not understand everything right now? The Nye clan had no intention to protect Heaven Pillar Peak, and it had other motives instead. In other words, they'd been used. Used. Lin Qian and the others wanted to attack, but they hadn't lost their minds. The voiders of the demon race weren't too far away from them, and that young woman was there as well. Nyehan paid no attention to them and just gazed off into the distance. Meanwhile, a flame appeared on the young woman's palm. Nyehun, Lin Qian, and the others' expressions changed at the sight of it. Nyehun's profound energy surged while gales started to blow beneath his feet. Obviously, he was ready to flee at any moment. Lin Qian and the others were ready to flee right away as well. No one dared to remain fearless before that young woman. But where could they flee? Heaven Pillar Peak was about to be destroyed, and the demon race's army would march forward into the human race's territory. At that time, where could they run to? Just thinking about what was about to happen in the future made sorrow well up in their hearts. Mo Xiaoling had a cold smile on the corners of her mouth, and the flame on her palm burned brilliantly. She glanced at them and was about to toss the flame forward, but a figure suddenly appeared not too far ahead from her. Mo Xiaoling's eyes immediately narrowed at the sight of that person, and then she tossed the flame at him. It was Yang Yi, of course. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched when he saw Mo Xiaoling toss the flame at him without the slightest hesitation. That horrible woman really wants to kill me. Even Yang Yi didn't dare act carelessly when facing that golden flame. He drew his sword and swung it right away. A ray of sword energy shot forward and instantly struck the golden flame. However, Yang Ye's eyelids twitched because his sword energy was obliterated by the flame, and the golden flame didn't slow down at all as it shot towards him like a bolt of lightning. Mo Xiaoling's laughter that was filled with ridicule resounded, and then another golden flame appeared on her palm. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He didn't attack again, and he just patted his chest lightly. It didn't take long for a small head to emerge from there. It was naturally snowy. She blinked, and then her gaze instantly descended onto the golden flame that was just around 3 m away from Yang Yi. Snowy's eyes instantly lit up at the sight of it, and then she opened her mouth and inhaled. The flame instantly shot into her mouth. Everyone who witnessed this scene was stunned. After she swallowed the flame, Snowy's figure trembled slightly, and then she gazed at the flame on Mo Xiaoling's palm, and then a string of liquid form spirit energy flowed down the corner of her mouth. The corners of Mo Xiaoling's eyes twitched, and she flipped her palm and put the flame away. Snowy was instantly stunned by this, and then she was filled with fury. She clenched her claws and gnashed her teeth while staring at Mo Xiaoling, and she seemed like she would fight Mo Xiaoling to the death if Mo Xiaoling refused to hand the flame over. The corners of Mo Xiaoling's mouth twitched slightly. She hesitated for a moment before flipping her right palm, and then a violet fruit appeared in her grasp. She flicked the violet fruit over to Snowy and said, "Have this instead." Snowy blinked at the sight of the violet fruit. She stopped gnashing her teeth and relaxed her claws before taking the fruit and biting it. She took 2 bites before she seemed to have thought of something, and then she flew over to Yang Yi and passed it to him with a brilliant smile on her face. Yang Ye's heart felt warm. He rubbed her head gently and said, "Head in and hide for now." As he spoke, he pointed at his chest. Snowy nodded, and then she went into the pocket of space while holding the fruit in her claws. Yang Yi paid no attention to Mo Xiaoling, and he just gazed at Lin Qian and the others. "Lead your forces to Dark Hell Continent." Actually, this was the reason why he'd showed himself. The Veiled Region would be finished once the demon race breached Heaven Pillar Peak, and once the Veiled Region was conquered, he couldn't guarantee that the demon race wouldn't attack Dark Hell Continent as well. So, he decided to save them and let them head to Dark Hell Continent. If he didn't show himself, many of them would die at Mo Xiaoling hands. As for the emperors, they would have no chance to live once the Voiders weren't there to protect them. After all, the blue rocks in the sky were far swifter than human emperors. Even though the 3 sects and 3 cities had lost many experts, they still had quite a few Voiders and emperors. If the demon race attacked Dark Hell Continent in the future, then all of them would be a huge help to him. Lin Qian and the others exchanged glances when they heard Yang Yi, and then they cupped their fists to Yang Yi and left. It was impossible to defend Heaven Pillar Peak now, so heading to Dark Hell Continent like Yang Yi had said was naturally the best choice for them. It was their only choice, because if they stayed in the Veiled Region, the demon race would pursue them until they were dead. The human emperors didn't die that quickly when protected by Lin Qian and the other Voiders. However, many still suffered miserable deaths. Because the demon race's army hadn't given up on pursuing and killing the humans, and even 2 human voiders perished during the pursuit. However, Yang Yi had no time to pay attention to all of that. All he could do right now was keep Mo Xiaoling busy. Otherwise, not to mention the emperors, even the voiders wouldn't be able to escape. Those voiders weren't able to fight back at all when facing her. Mo Xiaoling stared fixedly at Yang Yi. Yang Yi refused to show any weakness and met her gaze. However, he was vigilant in his heart. He didn't dare act carelessly at all when facing her. After all, even he really feared that golden flame of hers. Besides that, he still remembered that she still had another blue flame. Moreover, she was very mysterious, so he couldn't be certain that she had no other trump cards. Mo Xiaoling gazed at Yang Yi for a short while. Suddenly, she stretched out her hand and clawed lightly at him. This movement caused the space around Yang Yi to instantly warp and violently. The powerful shredding force it had caused Yang Yi to immediately frown, because he felt like his body was actually about to be torn apart by something. Bang! Rebirth rank sword intent surged out from within Yang Yi. However, it had just appeared when it started to warp along with the space in his surroundings. Yang Yi's face changed slightly. He hadn't expected even rebirth rank sword intent to be useless. He was about to attack when a ray of violet light flashed. As soon as that happened, the warping space around him instantly stopped for a moment, and then it started to return to normal. Even though it was a little slow, it didn't feel like it could shred him anymore. Around 10 breaths of time later, the space around Yang Yi returned to normal. Spatial mink. Mo Xiaoling clenched her fists. As a noble member of the demon race, you're actually helping a human. You truly disappoint me. As she spoke, she flipped her right palm, and a flame appeared on it. She was about to toss it at Yang Yi when Yang Yi's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly patted his chest. Snowy emerged right away. Mo Xiaoling's eyelids twitched at the sight of Snowy, and she hurriedly withdrew the flame. Mo Xiaoling was clearly quite infuriated. She had a murderous gaze when she looked at Yang Yi, and her hands were trembling from rage. Suddenly, Yang Yi pointed at Niehun, who still hadn't fled, and said, "Why don't we kill him first? You can vent first before we fight one-on-one, all right?" Mo Xiaoling turned to look at Niehun, and then a flame appeared in her palm. Needless to say, Niehun's face was extremely unsightly right now. He was about to flee earlier, but when he saw Mo Xiaoling attack Yang Yi, he'd chosen to stay behind because he wanted to seize the opportunity to kill Yang Yi. He felt that if he attacked when Yang Yi and the young woman were both heavily injured from their battle, then he would have a very good chance to kill Yang Yi. But he hadn't expected her to be actually helpless against him. Moreover, he hadn't expected Yang Yi to actually divert her attention to him. When the young woman gazed at him, Niehun didn't hesitate to turn around and flee. After all, just the young woman was so terrifying. Now that Yang Yi had joined forces with her, how could he possibly be a match for them? At the exact same moment that Niehun fled, the wings on Yang Yi's back flapped swiftly, and then Yang Yi transformed into a ray of light that appeared in front of Niehun. Yang Yi didn't waste his breath at all, and he just drew his sword and swung it. Niehun's expression changed at the sight of this. He didn't choose to go head-on against Yang Yi's attack because he was very well aware that once he got locked in combat with Yang Yi, he would never be able to leave. Niehun's figure flashed with the intention of avoiding Yang Yi's attack. Suddenly, a ray of violet light appeared behind Niehun. It had appeared so suddenly and without even making a ripple through space, so Niehun had only noticed it when it arrived behind him. Niehun paid no attention to the violet light and just allowed it to strike him. His figure trembled, but a slight smile curled up on the corners of his mouth, because he'd moved around 300 m to the right. But right when he was about to flee, the space around him suddenly froze before being compressed in layers. "Fuck off!" Niehun howled with fury as he slapped his palm forward. A ray of white light flashed and the space around him instantly collapsed. Meanwhile, Yang Yi appeared before him again, and a sword that was swift like a bolt of lightning instantly arrived before his forehead. Niehun was horrified and immediately slapped his right palm at Yang Yi's sword. Bang! Yang Yi was pushed around 300 m back again, and Niehun's figure moved backwards repeatedly as well. Suddenly, Niehun's eyes opened wide because a golden flame had arrived before him, and the heat it emanated caused his body to start melting. Niehun was horrified, and his figure flashed with the intention of dodging it. However, a violet barrier of light suddenly appeared around him and trapped him there. "Fuck off!" Niehun howled furiously as he slapped his palm forward and instantly shattered the violet barrier of light. However, his pupils suddenly constricted to the size of needles because the golden flame had struck him. Bang! Niehun's figure instantly started burning. He howled hysterically with rage while enveloped by the flames, and numerous circles of white light surged out from within him. However, it was utterly useless. The white circles of light were instantly incinerated upon leaving his body, and it didn't take long for Niehun's entire body to be incinerated. Only the burning golden flames still remained where he stood. Yang Yi had an extremely solemn expression on his face as he gazed at the golden flames, and there even was a trace of fear in his eyes. Even though his body was at the epic realm, he firmly believed that he would be completely incinerated if he allowed the golden flames to envelop him. The golden flames were definitely the second most terrifying type of flame he'd seen in his lifetime. The first was naturally the divine inflame that resided within the pill furnace in the primordial pagoda. Mo Xiaoling waved her right hand, and then golden flame instantly vanished on the spot. After that, she gazed at Yang Yi. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched, and he hurriedly brought Snowy out from within the pocket of space. Mo Xiaoling's eyelids twitched when she saw Yang Yi bring Snowy out, and she said, "Human, do you know how to use them?" She was extremely annoyed with Yang Yi. Her laws of time were useless against Yang Yi, and the golden flame was the worst. She didn't even dare to take it out. As for her spatial techniques, Yang Yi had a spatial mink by his side, so those spatial techniques of hers were completely crippled. In short, she couldn't use anything against Yang Yi. Use them. Yang Yi shook his head. You used the wrong term. It's absolutely wrong. We're just sharing both success and difficulty. He looked down and rubbed Snowy's head gently when he spoke up to this point. Right, Snowy? Snowy quickly nodded, even if she didn't really understand what Yang Yi was saying. How shameless! Mo Xiaoling spoke coldly. She hasn't reached adulthood yet, so her mind is like that of a child. She doesn't know how to differentiate between good or bad. You should really suffer the wrath of the heavens for using her like this. Say what you want. Yang Yi continued. In any case, she's with me. Yang Yi was naturally attached to Snowy. Could be said that he had no intention to use Snowy. Even if Snowy wasn't a sprite lord or possessed any special abilities, he would still treat Snowy as a loved one. Similarly, he believed that even if he was ordinary, Snowy would still be so close to him. Their relationship hadn't been built to seek benefits for themselves in any way. As for making Snowy help him, he felt that it was absolutely normal. Because wasn't it normal for them to help each other? Moreover, he was able to sense that Snowy was very happy to be able to help him. Of course, he was even happier. Mo Xiaoling glanced at Yang Yi, and then she glanced at Snowy. Needless to say, she was really filled with envy, because a human had never been able to form such a good relationship with a sprite lord. The status of a sprite lord in a large word was supreme. Even her clan couldn't compare to it. If one was able to form a good relationship with a sprite lord, then the benefits of that was simply unimaginable. That was why she'd ceaselessly given precious fruits to Snowy, because she wanted to form a good relationship with Snowy. Yet now, the sprite lord before her didn't just have a good relationship with Yang Yi. The sprite lord practically obeyed everything Yang Yi said. She was envious. Mo Xiaoling was filled with envy. Bang! Suddenly, a loud explosion resounded from behind him. Yang Yi turned and looked, and then his eyes instantly narrowed slightly. He saw Heaven Pillar Peak collapsing. The demon race's army had retreated backwards, and Yang Yi moved 30 kilometers back as well. After that, all of them watched as the mountain collapsed incessantly. Countless huge rocks flew out in all directions while dust and dirt shot up into the air. It was an absolutely shocking sight. Your human race is finished. Meanwhile, Mo Xiaoling suddenly spoke. The demon race's army will annihilate all humans. Yang Yi fell silent. He was very well aware that unless the humans in the Veiled region went to Dark Hell Continent, they would definitely die now that Heaven Pillar Peak had been destroyed. Moreover, based on how the demon race was acting, it might not even spare Dark Hell Continent. If that really happened, then it meant that the Sword Alliance would have to face the demon race. Even if the experts of the 3 sects and 3 cities were included, the Sword Alliance's current strength was still insufficient to fight the demon race. Yang Yi remained silent for a short while before he looked towards the demon race's territory. Those fellows from the Nye clan went to seize that treasure from the demon race? He'd watched as 12 voiders from the Nye clan shot towards the demon race's territory. Actually, he'd been shocked by that scene as well. After all, if those 12 voiders were combined with the voiders he'd already killed, the Nye clan had around 25 voiders. 25. Actually, besides shock, he felt a trace of fear. Because if the Nye clan hadn't been planning to seize that treasure from the demon race, it would have definitely sent those voiders at him. Just thinking about being besieged by 25 voiders caused Yang Yi to be unable to avoid shuddering. Moreover, there was a voider amongst that group of 12 that possessed an extremely terrifying aura, and that aura was a few times stronger than Nye Hun. Obviously, it was that ancestor of the Nye clan. Meanwhile, Mo Xiaoling started chuckling, and Yang Yi instantly felt like he was having a headache when he heard it. Regardless of whether it was her smile or the way she spoke, they were all filled with ridicule. It was like everyone else was trash in her eyes, and it was a truly terrible feeling. He really wanted to beat her up, but he really wasn't confident in being able to defeat her. Mo Xiaoling laughed coldly for a while before she said, "That old bastard actually thought about stealing a treasure from the demon race. He's truly tired of living." Yang Yi asked, "The demon race is prepared for him?" Mo Xiaoling glanced at Yang Yi and remained silent. She waved her right hand and the cloud eagle in the distance immediately flew over and stopped beneath her. Mo Xiaoling stood on the eagle as she gazed at Yang Yi and said, "I'm going to kill those old bastards of the Nye clan. Want to come with me?" Yang Yi remained silent. "Humph." Mo Xiaoling grunted coldly, and then she tapped her foot lightly against the eagle's back. The eagle immediately transformed into a ray of light that shot towards the demon race's territory. Meanwhile, the army of demon beasts had passed over the collapsed ruins of Heaven Pillar Peak and were marching towards the central area of the human race's territory. However, Yang Yi couldn't do anything about that. He wasn't a savior, nor did he have the ability to be one. His strength was utterly insufficient to stop the army of demon beasts. Moreover, if he tried, then it was obvious that the young woman from before would come looking for him. Besides that, the other voiders of the demon race and that demon empress whose strength he couldn't fathom would definitely come for him as well. Yang Yi hesitated for a moment, and then his figure shot after Mo Xiaoling. However, he didn't travel there openly, and he merged into space and concealed himself instead. Regardless of whether it was the demon race or those old geezers of the Nye clan, they weren't easy to deal with. So it was best to be cautious. It didn't take long for Yang Yi to arrive deep within the demon race's territory while following behind Mo Xiaoling. Suddenly, roaring laughter resounded from deep within the mountainous area. "Ha ha ha! I finally got it! Ha ha ha! It's finally mine!" Mo Xiaoling's face instantly became unsightly when she heard the voice. "He got it?" Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly, and he sped up. It didn't take long for him to follow Mo Xiaoling to the bottom of a chasm, and he saw the demon empress and the others there. At this moment, only 6 of the Voider Realm demon beasts on the demon empress side remained. As for the Nye clan, only 3 of its voiders remained. Moreover, besides the gray-robed old man who led the group, the other 2 of those voiders had ghastly pale countenances while blood was seeping all over their bodies. Obviously, they'd suffered extremely heavy injuries. But Yang Yi was quite surprised because besides those 3 voiders, the Nye clan had a Voider Realm demon beast on its side. That Voider Realm demon beast stood very close to the Nye clan's forces. Moreover, based on its expression, it seemed to not be hostile towards the Nye clan, and it was hostile towards the demon empress side instead. What's going on? Yang Yi was absolutely puzzled. He looked at the gray-robed old man. The gray-robed old man was holding a lotus-shaped fruit. The fruit was violet gold in color, and it emanated faint violet light. Its top had a hole and threads of violet energy was seeping out incessantly from there. This caused an area of 3 kilometers around it to be filled with a refreshing fragrance. Just a whiff of it refreshed and relaxed the mind and heart, and it made one feel indescribably comfortable. It isn't ordinary. Xianxia's heart shook. The fruit was definitely much better than the fruits that Emo Xiaoling had given to Snowy. But can it really help someone break through and advance above the voider realm? Xiangyi gazed at the Demon Empress. The Demon Empress' face was icy cold, and the hands she kept behind her back were clenched tightly. She seemed to be calm, but she felt extremely dangerous. The gray-robed old man looked up at the Demon Empress while a trace of ridicule appeared on the corners of his mouth. Demon Empress, you thought everything was within your control, but you were wrong. Everything was within my control. Nie Wuming, you really have surprised me. The Demon Empress continued. I never expected you to even be able to buy over a voider realm demon beast. The gray-robed old man called Nie Wuming laughed coldly. Didn't you do the same? You have people in my Nie clan as well. But all of that is meaningless now. Demon Empress, we'll meet again soon. He was about to leave once he finished speaking, but he suddenly frowned and looked where Yang Yi was. You're that fellow, Yang Yi, right? Not bad, you really are the most monstrous genius on the continent after Jian Wuji. The voiders of my Nie clan that died at your hands didn't suffer unjust deaths. I didn't have the time to deal with you earlier, and I naturally have no time now. But I'll have time in the future. Just you wait. As soon as he finished speaking, Nie Wuming's figure vanished on the spot along with the other 2 human voiders and that voider realm demon beast. Emo Xiaoling was about to attack, but the Demon Empress stopped Emo Xiaoling and shook her head. It's too late. Emo Xiaoling's face became cold. Was that the Wolf Clan's patriarch? The Demon Empress nodded. I never expected him to defect. Emo Xiaoling spoke coldly. He wasn't satisfied that you took control of the demon race, so it's very normal that he defected now. I told you to kill him, but you refused to listen. You have the ability, but you're not ruthless enough. The Demon Empress said, my husband once treated him like a brother. If my husband was still alive, he would definitely not let me kill him. Emo Xiaoling spoke coldly. Unnecessary kindness. The Demon Empress chuckled. I never expected him to join forces with Nie Wuming. Emo Xiaoling replied, if that old bastard really breaks through and rises above the voider realm, then what do you think would happen to the demon race? It would be completely slaughtered by him. As she spoke, she pointed at Yang Yi and said, even though I really want to kill him, he has something that I really admire. He's absolutely decisive, and he will definitely not show any mercy to those who deserve death. Not to mention a lousy place like this continent, a person like him would even be able to make a place for himself in the large world. The Demon Empress stretched out her hand and rubbed Emo Xiaoling's head as she smiled. Don't be angry. Since the mistake has been made, all we can do is mend the mistake. Fortunately, it isn't too late. As she spoke, she turned to look at one of the voider realm demon beasts. Give the order to kill anyone related to the patriarch of the Wolf Clan. If anyone in the Wolf Clan dares to resist, then kill them as well. Once you've killed them, hang their heads on the city gates so that the patriarch of the Wolf Clan can take a look in the future. Yes, that voider realm demon beast bowed slightly to her, and then he turned around and left. Meanwhile, the Demon Empress turned to look where Yang Yi was standing. Since you're here, then why hide yourself? A moment of silence ensued, and then the space in the distance rippled before Yang Yi stepped out of it. Yang Yi asked, does that fellow, Nie Wuming, really have a chance to advance from the voider realm? He only has a chance. The Demon Empress explained. That divine spirit fruit was nurtured by the violet energy of a large world, and it contains extremely pure energy. Once it ripens and is consumed, it's very likely that he will advance from the voider realm if his luck is good. Of course, even if he fails to advance, it will definitely provide a huge boost in strength. Yang Yi asked, that fruit hasn't ripened yet? The Demon Empress nodded. Yang Yi instantly heaved a sigh of relief. After all, he'd killed so many from the Nie clan. If Nie Wuming advanced right away, then he might be the first that Nie Wuming seeks out. At this moment, Nie Wuming's strength was already extremely terrifying. Once Nie Wuming attained an advancement in his cultivation, Yang Yi would probably need the sword spirit or Xianxia's help to fight Nie Wuming. Fortunately, the fruit wasn't ripe yet, so Nie Wuming wouldn't be looking for trouble with him for some time. Suddenly, the demon empress said, "That fruit will fully ripen in half a month from now." Yang Ye's face froze, and then a short while passed before he laughed bitterly. The fruit would ripen in half a month. In other words, only had a little more than that amount of time before Nie Wuming would come looking for him. "I really don't have much time." Suddenly, Yang Ye's expression changed. He gazed at the demon empress while vigilance appeared on his face, because the demon empress' divine sense had locked onto him. Now that Heaven Pillar Peak is gone, the humans throughout the veiled region shall die. The demon empress gazed at Yang Yi and continued, "It's the same for Dark Hell Continent." Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. "Demon Empress, the demon race has annihilated the Nye clan and the human race of the veiled region that offended your demon race. Isn't that enough? Dark Hell Continent is just a barren place, and it's completely useless to the demon race, right?" He naturally didn't want to go to war with the demon race, because doing so wasn't beneficial at all. Not only would lives be lost, it would waste a huge amount of time. The thing he lacked the most right now was time. However, the demon empress shook her head and said, "The continent needs only the demon race." Yang Ye's face fell. Meanwhile, the demon empress added, "Yang Yi, you're a genius. If you're willing to surrender with your sword alliance and obey my commands, then I can allow you to live. Otherwise, you'll annihilate us, right?" Yang Yi interrupted her and laughed coldly. "Demon Empress, I can tell you frankly that my sword alliance will definitely not surrender. If your demon race really intends to attack Dark Hell Continent, then my sword alliance will accompany you in battle until the end." The demon empress gazed at Yang Yi for a short while and nodded. "I expected that." As soon as she finished speaking, she waved her right hand, and then the 5 Voider Realm demon beasts behind her immediately shot towards Yang Yi. The demon empress was very well aware that the sword alliance was nothing to worry about, and the truly terrifying one was Yang Yi. So long as he was there, the entire sword alliance would converge together, and it would become an extremely difficult enemy to conquer while under Yang Ye's lead. So, she'd chosen to attack right here and now. Because once Yang Yi was killed, the demon race's army could crush Dark Hell Continent and the Sword Alliance. Yang Ye's face fell when he saw 5 Voiders charge at him. Obviously, he understood the demon empress' intentions. She wanted to kill him right here and now. So, Yang Yi didn't hesitate to flap the wings on his back and flee. What a joke! There were 7 Voiders here, and the demon empress and Mo Shaoling were no ordinary Voiders. So, how could he possibly defeat them? Fleeing was the right choice. Fortunately, his speed was swift enough. When Blink was combined with his sword control technique and spatial laws, Yang Yi instantly appeared a few thousand kilometers away. But his expression changed when he was about to utilize the sword domain to conceal himself. Because a person had suddenly appeared out of thin air before him, and it was the demon empress. Her speed was even swifter than his. The demon empress didn't speak. She just pointed her finger forward. In an instant, everything around Yang Yi seemed to freeze. The laws of time. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly, and he hurriedly activated the sword domain. As soon as it appeared, the energy that frozen the area around him instantly vanished, and then Yang Ye's figure vanished on the spot. He hadn't attacked because the young woman and those other 5 Voiders were behind him. The sword domain. The demon empress frowned slightly, and then she vanished on the spot. A few thousand kilometers away, Yang Yi stopped once more because the demon empress had appeared in front of him again. This time, she didn't utilize the laws of time, and she just slapped her right palm at him. A wave of powerful force swept forward, and space collapsed in its wake. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He sheathed Heaven's gravestone within the ancient sheath, and then he drew it. OM! A beam of sword energy shot out of the ancient sheath. Bang! A loud explosion resounded in front of Yang Yi, And then Yang Yi watched with astonishment as the Demon Empress attack actually blasted his sword energy into pieces. Yang Yi didn't have the time to think because the wave of force had arrived in front of him. He immediately put his sword away, clenched his right fist rightly, and then slammed it forward. The brink laws. A wave of energy swept forward and collided with the wave of force that the Demon Empress had created. Bang! The space around the point of collision collapsed in an instant while the force of the collision blasted Yang Yi 3 kilometers back. Yang Yi wiped off the blood on the corner of his mouth while a solemn expression filled his eyes. The Demon Empress is truly strong. She's countless times stronger than that fellow, Nyahun. Meanwhile, the 5 voiders of the demon race and the young woman appeared around Yang Yi, and they completely surrounded him. Yang Ye's face instantly fell. The Demon Empress started walking towards him, and every single step she took caused space to tremble violently, as if it couldn't endure her strength. 5 Voider Realm demon beasts, and the terrifying Demon Empress and that young woman. How do I overcome this situation? Yang Ye's thoughts were flashing swiftly. At this moment, he had a very clear understanding of the situation that he was in, and he was absolutely incapable of defeating him. Not to mention that they had 7 Voiders, just the Demon Empress wasn't someone he could fight right now. Her strength really far surpassed his own. That was something he had no doubt about. Besides raising his sword intent to the quasi-returnal rank or igniting his soul again, perhaps he would have a chance to fight them. But the problem was that even if he did that, it would be impossible for him to kill the Demon Empress and the young woman. Moreover, once he suffered backlash from it, he would definitely die. He would still be unable to avoid death even if he made his sword intent or cultivation rise a level. Since he couldn't fight them, he had no choice but to flee. But the problem was the Demon Empress speed was faster than his. What should I do? Yang Ye's brows were pressed tightly together. The Demon Empress strode step by step towards Yang Yi. Every single step she took caused space to tremble, and an invisible wave of force pressed down upon Yang Yi in succession. The force was heavy and oppressive like when Heaven Pillar Peak collapsed. The 5 Voiders in the surroundings didn't stand by idly as well. All of them released their auras in Yang Ye's direction. Yang Ye's rebirth rank sword intent was pushed back repeatedly before their joint forces. In the end, it could only barely protect him, and it seemed like it would be dispersed very soon. Suddenly, Yang Yi looked up at the Demon Empress and said, "Do you really intend to fight to the death?" The Demon Empress spoke indifferently. "Do you even have the ability to take us down with you?" Yang Yi chuckled. He didn't speak another word, and the Sword God's seal just lit up on his forehead. As soon as the Sword God's seal lit up, the Demon Empress' expression changed. She knew about the Sword God's seal. Yang Ye's sword intent was at the rebirth rank now, and it wasn't really a threat to her. But if Yang Ye's sword intent rose a level higher, then even she would have to take it seriously. Yang Yi glanced at the surroundings and said, "I know that even if my sword intent rises to a level above, it'll still be difficult for me to kill you and Mo Xiaoling. But trust me on this. The other 5 demon beasts here will die." He wasn't lying. If his sword intent rose to the quasi-returnal rank, then it wouldn't be difficult for him to annihilate the other demon beasts here. The Demon Empress fell silent, and she seemed to be giving it consideration. Yang Yi held his sword tightly while the profound energy within his surged madly. A long moment silent later, the Demon Empress looked up at Yang Yi and said, "It's worth paying that price." As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to attack. However, Yang Yi attacked first. A terrifying wave of sword intent suddenly surged out from within him, and then it was compressed before erupting forward. Bang! A wave of destructive force swept towards the surroundings with Yang Yi at its center. The Voider Realm demon beasts around Yang Yi were blasted around 1 kilometer away. As for the Demon Empress, she was pushed around 30 m back. But it didn't take long for her to stretch her right hand forward and clench it. Bang! The terrifying wave of energy created by Yang Ye's sword intent which was brought to the brink had been instantly dispersed. The surroundings immediately returned to calm. However, the space in the surroundings was covered in cracks that seemed like spiderwebs. At this moment, Yang Yi wasn't where he was standing anymore. The demon empress' eyes narrowed slightly, and then she took a step forward and instantly vanished on the spot. At the same time, her voice resounded here, "Pursue him!" As soon as her voice finished resounding through the air, Mo Shaoling and the other voiders vanished on the spot. A few thousand kilometers away, Yang Yi hurriedly withdrew some violet crystals and swallowed them before flying forward madly on his sword. Actually, he was just scaring the demon empress just now. He didn't dare to forcefully raise his sword intent to the quasi-returnal rank again, of course. What a joke! It would give him temporary strength, but what about once the duration was up? He would only be able to sit there and wait for death to arrive. It could be said that unless he had no other choice, he wouldn't do it, nor would he dare to improve his sword intent by force or improve his cultivation by force through igniting his soul. After all, those methods were used when he was fighting with his life on the line. However, he hadn't expected that the demon empress was actually determined to kill him, even if she had to sacrifice the lives of the Voider Realm demon beasts there. Actually, it was very normal. The demon empress was no fool. Perhaps she would have to pay a price if she chose to kill Yang Yi now. But it was worth it, because once Yang Yi was allowed to leave and join forces with the entire Sword Alliance, then killing him wouldn't be possible by just sacrificing a few Voider Realm demon beasts. After all, the remaining Voiders of the 3 sects and 3 cities had gone to Dark Hell Continent. Once Yang Yi joined forces with them, then it would be quite difficult for her to kill Yang Yi and destroy the Sword Alliance. But once she killed Yang Yi, she could destroy the Sword Alliance with absolute ease. At this moment, Yang Yi had raised his speed to its limits. The Void Flash technique combined with Blink allowed him to instantly fly a few thousand kilometers away. Even though it exhausted quite a bit of profound energy, he had no other choice. Even though he'd raised his speed to its limits, he still wasn't able to shake the Demon Emperor off his trail. At this moment, he could sense her aura, and it made his face become slightly gloomy. If he let her catch up to him again, then he would probably be unable to escape even if he brought his sword intent to the brink again. The only reason he'd been able to escape just now was that he'd taken them off guard, and the Demon Empress hadn't taken any precautions. Yet now they would definitely take precautions. So, once he allowed them to catch up to him, it would be difficult to redo the same thing and escape. After all, the Demon Empress was clearly not a fool. A moment of silence ensued before Yang Yi spoke in a low voice. "Zier, can you seal off the space she's traveling through?" Zier pondered deeply for a moment before she said, "She's very strong and can easily break through my spatial techniques, but I'll still give it a try." As soon as she finished speaking, a ray of violet light flashed. After that, the space behind Yang Yi suddenly started to tremble before starting to compress in layers. At this moment, the space in this area was extremely strange. However, it didn't take long for a wave of energy to suddenly seep out from that expanse of space, and then it only took an instant for the space there to return to normal. Zier's voice arose in Yang Ye's mind. "I can't. She's too strong." Yang Ye's face fell. Even Zier's spatial techniques can't trap her. If this goes on, she'll catch up to me soon. Meanwhile, Zier suddenly said, "I'll detonate the space behind you. Perhaps it'll be able to delay her a little. However, it won't work for long." Yang Yi nodded. "I understand." Based on the Demon Empress actions, it was clear that she was determined to kill him. So, even fleeing wouldn't work and he had to think of something. After pondering deeply for a long time, Yang Yi seemed to have thought of something, and he frowned while a trace of hesitation appeared in his eyes. A long time passed before he took a deep breath and said, "Desperate times require desperate measures. I have no choice but to try. Zier, help me slow her down." "All right." An instant after she spoke, the space behind them collapsed incessantly, and rumbling resounded incessantly from behind them. The following scene was quite shocking, because they left a trail of collapsed space in their wake. So, a huge stretch of black holes were left behind wherever they'd passed. However, Yang Yi still had a solemn expression on his face because the Demon Empress aura was still there. She was like a ghost that was sticking closely behind him. Suddenly, Zier's voice resounded, "Watch out!" Yang Yi looked up and saw a huge palm had suddenly appeared in the sky. It wasn't descending towards him but an area ahead. But that made the expression on Yang Ye's face become even more unsightly. Because based on his current speed, the moment it descended to the ground was the exact same time that he would pass through that area. He could go around it or stop for a moment, of course. But if he did that, then the demon empress would instantly appear before him. Yang Yi didn't hesitate to press his sword against his forehead before stomping his right foot down, and then his figure transformed into a ray of light that shot forward. Hiss! The ray of light pierced through the palm and vanished into the sky. Yang Yi had just vanished when the demon empress appeared where he'd been standing, and then Mo Shaoling and the other 5 voiders appeared right after her. The demon empress looked ahead with an icy cold gaze in her eyes. If we don't kill him this time, then we'll have endless troubles in the future. As soon as she finished speaking, she took a step forward and vanished on the spot. Actually, she understood now why the Nye clan was so desperate to kill Yang Yi. Yang Yi was a truly terrifying genius. Not to mention in the future, he was extremely dangerous even now. If the demon race wanted to reign supreme over Dark Hell Continent, then Yang Yi had to be eliminated. Otherwise, even if the demon race could annihilate the human race now, it would definitely regain its past glory in the future. Mo Shaoling and the others immediately followed after her. Around 15 minutes later, Yang Yi had fled out of the Veiled region and arrived on Dark Hell Continent, and then he continued fleeing. Mo Shaoling asked while following behind the Demon Empress, "Is he returning to the Sword Alliance?" The Demon Empress' face was icy cold, and she'd lost the smile and calmness she usually had. "No matter where he goes, he must die today. No one can save him." In next to no time, the Demon Empress group vanished on the spot and went off in pursuit of Yang Yi. Around 5,000 kilometers away, Yang Ye's profound energy was surging madly within him, and it raised his speed to his limits. His profound energy was being burnt up at an insane rate as he wasn't holding back at all, and he vanished forward as swiftly as he could. Zier asked, "Are you heading back to the Sword Alliance?" Yang Yi shook his head. Return to the Sword Alliance? The current forces of the Sword Alliance wouldn't be able to stop the Demon Empress group, because they weren't mentally prepared at all. If he led the Demon Empress and the others to the Sword Alliance would definitely be caught off guard and suffer heavy losses. Perhaps even Doomsday City would be destroyed. So, returning to the Sword Alliance would only drag it down with him. Zier asked, "Then where are you heading?" "We'll be there soon." As soon as he finished speaking, Yang Yi shot forward. Around 15 minutes later, a huge ocean appeared within Yang Ye's field of vision. Yang Yi transformed into a ray of light that descended to the ground, and then he looked up before instantly heaving a sigh of relief in his heart. There was a woman seated on the huge rock in front of him. Blind Maiden. Meanwhile, the Demon Empress group appeared not too far behind Yang Yi. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched, and he instantly flashed onto the huge rock and grabbed Blind Maiden's arm. "Big sister, save me!" The Demon Empress, Mo Shaoling, and 5 Voider Realm demon beasts. How could he fight such a force? He couldn't fight them even if the entire Sword Alliance fought with him. So, Yang Yi had no other choice but to come to Blind Maiden. If even Blind Maiden couldn't stop them, then he would have no choice but to fight desperately. Blind Maiden had clearly been quite stunned by Yang Ye's actions, and it took some time for her to recover from her shock. After that, a wave of invisible force enveloped her arm and pushed Yang Ye's hands away. However, Yang Yi hurriedly grabbed her arm again and said, "Big sister, I'm not your big sister." Blind Maiden pushed Yang Yi away again. But just a moment passed before Yang Yi grabbed her arm again. "Third sister, you're Nether Maiden and the other's third sister. So you're my third sister too. You can't just watch as I die." Couldn't be helped. When he had to choose between his life and dignity, he could only choose his life. Blind Maiden gazed at Yang Yi for a short while before she said, "Your skin is quite thick." Yang Ye's face stiffened slightly, but it only took a moment for him to return to normal. Presently, he had resigned himself to acting shamelessly. He immediately replied, "Third sister, I really had no other choice but to come look for you. Those fellows refused to fight me in single combat and want to besiege me. Look, 6 of them are attacking me. They're really too shameless. Hopeless situations can bring transformation. As soon as Blind Maiden finished speaking, she pushed Yang Yi away again and turned to look at the ocean. Yang Yi laughed bitterly. He knew that hopeless situations could bring about transformations, but hopeless situations could also bring death. I'm quite disappointed. Suddenly, the Demon Empress spoke. Yang Yi, I thought you were different, but I never expected that you would act like everyone else when you face death. Yang Yi spoke coldly. Demon Empress, you're fighting me 6 against 1, yet you still have the gall to say that? Have a little shame. You want me to fight you in single combat? The Demon Empress laughed coldly. Yang Yi, that's a very good place. Even though I don't fear fighting you in single combat, I don't want to give you any chances or waste time. As she spoke, the Demon Empress was about to attack. Yang Ye's eyelids twitched and hurriedly spoke. Demon Empress, you better think this through. As he spoke, he walked over to Blind Maiden. She? The Demon Empress interrupted Yang Yi and laughed coldly. Unless Jian Wuji is reborn, no one can save you today. She charged at Yang Yi once she finished speaking. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly while the sword god's seal lit up on his forehead. Actually, he'd merely come to look for Blind Maiden to try his luck. Since she wasn't willing to help, then he had no choice but to rely on himself. But right when he was about to activate the sword god's seal, Yang Yi was suddenly stunned. Because while he didn't know if the Demon Empress had done so intentionally or unintentionally, her aura had even enveloped Blind Maiden. Yang Yi thought for a moment, and then he stood in front of Blind Maiden and spoke angrily. Demon Empress, this is between us. It has nothing to do with her. So just come at me. Since she's a human, she should die as well. As soon as the Demon Empress finished speaking, she slapped her palm forward from afar. And then a wave of terrifying force immediately swept towards Yang Yi and Blind Maiden. I'll fight you to the death. Yang Ye's eyes were filled with resolve. He stomped his right foot against the ground, shot up into the sky, and then slammed his fist forward. Bang! As soon as they came into contact, Yang Ye's figure was blasted away in a very exaggerated manner. The Demon Empress was slightly stunned by this as well because Yang Yi wasn't that weak. What's going on? Right when the Demon Empress felt puzzled, the terrifying force she emanated had descended towards Blind Maiden. Blind Maiden finally acted. She turned around to look at the Demon Empress, and then she stretched out her right hand and waved it lightly. Just that caused the terrifying force to be instantly wiped out. After that, she pushed her right palm forward. Everyone here watched with astonishment as the space before Blind Maiden shook violently. And then the Demon Empress was blasted 3 kilometers away. The Voider Realm demon beasts and Mo Xiaoling were stunned. Obviously, they hadn't expected that to happen. Meanwhile, Yang Yi heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Blind Maiden had acted, or he would really have to fight desperately and risk his life. The Demon Empress had an extremely solemn expression on her face as she looked up at Blind Maiden. Who are you? Humans should die? Blind Maiden continued. Don't forget that you're human too. The Demon Empress stared fixedly at Blind Maiden. A moment of silence ensued before she suddenly clawed at Blind Maiden from afar. And then a huge energy claw tore through space and clawed at Blind Maiden. When the huge claw appeared, the ocean behind Blind Maiden started to surge before waves of water shot up into the air and into the clouds. It was absolutely shocking. Yang Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. Her strength really is quite strong. After that, he gazed at Blind Maiden. Even though he was quite confident in her, he didn't know anything about her true strength, so he wasn't very sure if Blind Maiden could fight the Demon Empress group. If Blind Maiden couldn't, then he would have done something bad because it was equivalent to bringing harm to Blind Maiden. Once he thought up to this point, Yang Yi had decided in his heart, if Blind Maiden couldn't fight the Demon Empress group, then he would improve his sword intent to the quasi-returnal rank and ignite his soul. Nether Maiden had a calm expression on her face. She twisted her right hand slightly and tapped her finger upwards when the huge claw arrived above her. Bang! The huge energy claw shattered into pieces, and then those pieces were obliterated in an instant. It was like they'd never existed. The corners of the Demon Empress' eyes twitched slightly, and she was just about to attack again. However, Blind Maiden suddenly tapped her finger in the Demon Empress direction. OM! The space before Blind Maiden instantly rippled. At the same time, the Demon Empress expression changed drastically, and she pressed her palms over each other before pushing them forward. Bang! A mouthful of blood sprayed from the Demon Empress as her figure was blasted over 3 kilometers away. Demon Empress! The 5 voiders of the demon race shot towards Blind Maiden. How terrifying was the joint attack of 5 Voider Realm demon beasts. However, Blind Maiden didn't even spare them a glance. She just waved her right hand, and then Xianxia watched with astonishment as those 5 voiders were blasted around 10 kilometers away. Xianxia's jaw almost hit the ground. My God! Those are voiders, not emperors. Voiders. 5 of them, but they were blasted away with just a light wave of the hand. How strong is she? Blind Maiden was about to attack again. However, Mo Xiaoling suddenly appeared not too far away from Blind Maiden. There was a golden flame and dark blue flame on Mo Xiaoling's palms, and she didn't waste her breath at all and immediately tossed them. The flames left a trail of fire behind them as they shot towards Blind Maiden. Blind Maiden's beautiful brows were pressed slightly together. A moment of silence ensued before she pushed both her palms forward, and then clenched them gently. In an instant, the flames were frozen on the spot. Suddenly, Mo Xiaoling appeared behind those flames, and then she formed a strange seal with her hands. The flames instantly expanded rapidly, and they transformed into a huge golden flame dragon and a huge dark blue flame dragon before immediately slamming themselves against Blind Maiden. Bang! The area around Blind Maiden was instantly transformed into an ocean of flames. Mo Xiaoling revealed a cold smile at the sight of this. But it didn't take long for her smile to stiffen because the ocean of flames was actually starting to expand. Bang! A moment later, it was completely obliterated, and Blind Maiden appeared before her again. At this moment, Blind Maiden remained the same, and she hadn't suffered any injuries. How could this be possible? Mo Xiaoling stared fixedly at Blind Maiden. You were actually not injured by my Sky Inferno and Nether Ocean. Blind Maiden gazed at Mo Xiaoling and said, It's quite surprising that you possess such divine treasures. Wait, you're not from this world. You're from the outside world. The bloodline of demon beasts. No, it doesn't belong to demon beasts, it belongs to divine beasts. You have the bloodline of a divine beast, and it's blazing, and capable of rendering you immune to all flames. You're from the Divine Phoenix clan. Mo Xiaoling's pupils constricted slightly. Who exactly are you? Why do you know of my clan? The Demon Empress appeared by Mo Xiaoling's side, and her gaze was on Blind Maiden as well. Besides bewilderment, there was fear in her eyes as well, because the strength of the woman before her was simply unfathomable. Blind Maiden said, Your Divine Phoenix clan didn't participate in what happened all those years ago, so I'll let you live. As she spoke, she gazed at the Demon Empress. I'll take your head if you step foot here again. As soon as she finished speaking, Blind Maiden paid no further attention to them. She just turned around and left. Meanwhile, Mo Xiaoling suddenly asked, Who are you? The Nether Pavilion. Blind Maiden didn't even look back and just continued forward. Xianxia hurriedly followed her because he had many things to ask Blind Maiden. The Nether Pavilion? The Demon Empress frowned slightly. Obviously, she'd never heard of it. She turned around to gaze at Mo Xiaoling, and she was stunned when she saw the expression on Mo Xiaoling's face. Because Mo Xiaoling's eyes were opened wide, and there was shock and disbelief in them. The Demon Empress was even more shocked than Mo Xiaoling, because she'd never seen Mo Xiaoling react like that. Since the very beginning, Mo Xiaoling had always been extremely confident, and she'd looked down on everything on Dark Hell Continent. Yet now, Mo Xiaoling was clearly shocked. The Demon Empress asked in a low voice, What's the Nether Pavilion? Mo Xiaoling clenched her fists and remained silent for a long time. After that, she turned to look at the Demon Empress. Don't come here again or no one can save you. The Demon Empress frowned. What exactly is the Nether Pavilion? Mo Xiaoling looked up at the sky. A sect that once instilled fear in all the other powers of the large world. They have 10 halls. She gazed at the demon empress before she continued. Do you know how terrifying they are if all 10 hall masters awaken and converge together? Mo Xiaoling took a short breath of air at this point, and then she said, when the 10 halls gather,